All right, I'd like to throw a question out there. Who do you visualize using this archive?
Well, we have all these universities and music programs, jazz scholars, community, and even high schools. You know, they need to put the music back in the public schools, the art and the music here in Philadelphia. So, it could be a range of users.
So I'm pioneering the Jazz Education Initiative at WRTI. And the idea behind this initiative is to, one, bring to the attention of young folks that there's this radio station called WRTI. You have several schools, Dunbar Elementary, a few charter schools, engineering and science, all within 5 blocks of WRTI. Kids walk past that building every day, have no idea.
Right.
You have 17,000 students that live on the campus of Temple University that walk past that building and have no idea that there's a radio station in that building. So a portion of this initiative is to bring to their attention that this radio station exists through tours of the radio station, witnessing a Facebook Live session at the radio station, things along those lines. The other part of that is to introduce them to the music through Facebook Live sessions, spending time, meeting folks at the radio station, the different departments, because everybody, you say radio station, they picture a microphone and a booth.
Right.
And that's it. They don't know there's a membership department, an underwriter department, things along those lines.
Doesn't RTI stand for Radio Training Institute?
How about that?
Yeah.
All right. So, that is correct. All right. So that's kind of the focus, but also just giving them insight. You know, there was a wonderful documentary recently on PBS, The Jazz Ambassadors, you know, talking about Adam Clayton Powell and using the help of Dizzy and Pops and sending them out to circumvent Russian propaganda.
Yeah, right, that's
All
right.
But also, Chris Washburn, trombonist at Columbia. We had a chance to interview a few years back, and one of the things he brought to my attention was that there's a mandate at Columbia that every student, not just music, not just jazz students, but every student take a jazz studies class.
Right.
And with the idea that every student should know how to think. And improvisation is a part of life.
Yeah.
So that key component of what we know and love as jazz is integral to life in general. So that's why Columbia mandated that. So bringing these type of things to the attention of young folks, the history of the music, improvisation, this radio station, so having a wonderful archive like this,
Yeah, well,
bringing young folks through WRTI and utilizing the archive as part of the process. So I see a lot of use.
yeah. And we've all read stories about jazz musicians that their first exposure to it was in the public library. You know, they would go there every day, and once they discovered it, that was their resource. Well, Trump just announced the other day he's going to cut funding for public libraries across the board for every community, and so
Don't mention
we
his
might
name.
be stepping out just at the right time. because
Don't introduce that
something-
man. And
Something's got to happen.
Right.
You know?
Well, go aside from that, jazz education, which that would definitely be the archives. Can you see a tangential way people would use, coming from a different, like how, because Pew's going to want to know,
Museum.
you know, it's obvious you're going to attract jazz scholars, history scholars, you know, this kind of stuff, and high school students, and that's all great. They're going to want to know, who else is going to want to know this?
Well, you know, we have a major jazz, we have a couple major jazz festivals. One of the things that, and we have people come from out of town for those festivals, one of the things that you might want to do is to have a tour
Yep.
of the archives. So you buy a ticket to one of the concerts, you get a tour of the archives.
So
We've
part
all
of
been
cultural
told.
heritage tourism.
Right.
Yeah, cultural, yeah,
We've all
okay.
been talking about this for years, but, you know, getting the city involved somehow where it would be part of a tour or would be part of some kind of package, you know, like a tourist destination, you know.
Well, I mean, again, if that Ridge Avenue location or some
Yeah.
other location becomes the spot. I mean, there's a multitude of activities that can take place there, performances.
Sure.
Again, folks that are visiting that location for whatever the reason may be, it may not just be, for the purpose of archive, checking out the archives, but a byproduct of their visit would be to check out that archive.
Oh,
Yeah.
a strip like they have in Kansas City or, I mean,
The other thing that I think we need to do is educate the educators, because oftentimes they don't know what resources they have available that they can use to teach their students. And some of them just aren't interested because it's not part of your curriculum. So educate them as well and provide this information and access to it so that then we can just have it full circle.
And Suzanne, you asked who else would use it. I'm really bad with names, so I cannot think of his name. The lawyer here, very well-known lawyer, he died recently. The one on jazz and improvisation, jazz and entrepreneurship. And one of the best events I ever attended was at the World Cafe Live, was for startups. And he talked about, it was about 4 or 5 lawyers, they had a band, and so they do their little number, and then they would talk about whatever the issue was that for this entrepreneurship conference. So you would be surprised how many entrepreneurs are interested in jazz, because the whole startup culture is about improvisation.
Yeah.
And they would want to perhaps dive deeper into it.
So even business schools
Oh, yeah.
would?
Oh, business was absolutely.
Yeah.
The more the archive is a people's archive, the more material that comes from the people, the more the people will show up at the archive.
That's true.
Okay.
To see themselves, to
Right.
see
I was
their
And their
just-
works.
Just as
And
a point of
along that
information.
line, help them know what's worth preserving. It's not just compositions. Folks use on eBay, they sell matchbooks. They sell like ticket stubs.
Right.
So all in those shoe boxes where they have the ticket stubs, where they have the matches. Back in the day, clubs gave out matches.
Right.
Right, matchbooks.
I wrote a piece for the Preservation Alliance magazine, and one of the images, they actually didn't publish it, but one of the images I submitted was this jazz cafe from the 1930s, and one of the buildings that was recently demolished on Broad Street. This showed that connection with jazz in that building, and I used an image I got off of eBay of the matchbook, because it was how do you know it was located there, because there are no corporate records. Well, it's a matchbook.
Yeah, right.
So you want to raise awareness of what's worth.
So what you're saying, because I see jazz in a lot of ways being used as part of social history too. If you look at Columbia Avenue, and you look at the politics, South Street, politics of the 60s.
52nd Street. Ridge.
There's so many connections that jazz was a part of that people really don't know that they were a part of any of that, so that might be an extra way.
But the people who were there know.
Right.
Did you say Columbia Avenue?
Yeah.
Now Cecil B.
I think
Moore.
that's-
Cecil B. Moore.
That's now Cecil B. Moore.
I think it might be the first time I was in Philadelphia, but you just reminded me, around 1986, 87 is when I met Steve Rowland, and we went up and down Columbia Avenue and saw a lot of jazz on, I think it was on a Sunday afternoon, including the late famous Jimmy Oliver.
Yeah.
Jimmy.
But also WRTI itself. I mean, just that history.
Yeah.
I mean, the different eras and the personalities associated with WRTI and the history of the station, and radio in Philadelphia, in general. But I think that's, it's a major contributor when we talk about the history of this music in Philadelphia and trying to find a way to present the contributions, but also the participation that WRTI represents.
Another way to draw tourists would be to have exhibits, changing exhibits in the space of rare and unique materials that you can't see anyplace else.